Okay. Okay, thank you, everybody. I hope everybody had a break, and so glad to welcome Professor Eva Malavetti from Embry-Riddle University, where she's an assistant professor. And she's also a member of our Advanced Air Mobility Institute's Research Council. So it'll be really interesting to hear what she has to say on how AAM can deliver a sustainable tomorrow. The floor is yours, Eva.
Thank you for the introduction, Gary. Thank you very much all for having me today. It's a great opportunity to presenting for the first time in the Advanced Air Mobility Institute. Thank you for this opportunity. As Gary said, I'm an assistant professor and program coordinator of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in the United States for the master's program in aviation and aerospace sustainability, which I had the honor to redevelop from the beginning, offering all these new topics that the aviation industry requires currently to meet all these targets, the Sustainable Development Goals, implement new approaches regarding sustainability. Now, sustainability in advanced air mobility, it's something that is very different from what we have heard in the previous presentations. But the big question is how we can make all the different air transportation sectors contribute to a sustainable tomorrow. We all know the words, we all hear the word sustainable, sustainability, sustainable development, but do we actually know how to use or how to apply these sustainability principles to all the air transportation sectors, aiming to develop this or to recreate, to be exact, this sustainable aviation sector? Now, of course, the ideas that I want to share with you all, they cannot be 100% elaborated within 10 minutes or 15 minutes in this presentation, but I want to show you a little bit what is the role of system thinking in any aviation organization, in any aviation sector, for creating a sustainable tomorrow. And everything starts from this diagram and sustainable development as a definition. So if we all sit down and think, we hear every day about sustainable development, sustainable aviation fuel, sustainable designs and technologies. And for a reason, most of the people, they confuse it with environmental protection, with ecological sciences. Well, we need to be very careful when we talk about sustainability and sustainable development. First of all, sustainable development, it's a term that came into public around 1987 with the Bratland Report. And sustainable development is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the needs of future generations. And this requires that we have all the three main pillars of sustainability in balance. And in that way, we cover what we call the holistic approach of sustainability. So as you can see in the graph, we have the environmental aspect of sustainability, the social aspect of sustainability, and the economic aspect of sustainability. We cannot have a sustainable model if we don't have all these three aspects in balance. As you can see in the graph, these three circles, they are interconnected and interlinked. And the deeper we want to go in our processes, in our systems, the more specific we become in applying these sustainability principles. Like, for example, we should not always only care about the environment. That's why we should not confuse environment with sustainability, or environmental protection or environmental management with sustainability. Sustainability requires to have a system that is economically viable, because if it is economically viable, it will continue to exist in time, and it will continue to support all these basic necessary elements that we need in order for make our industry in aviation, for example, or in advanced air mobility, to be specific, meeting regulatory standards, creating new regulatory standards, which means that we need to train our people. We need to train our regulators. We need to train our manufacturing facilities. We need to create new job specialties. We need to expand our research. And then on top of that, we always need to be careful to how do we handle the environment. The environment from our operations, but at the same time, the environment from the waste or the post operations that we create. Now, these are all necessary elements that we need to have in mind. And when we talk about advanced air mobility, we talk about a very innovative sector. We talk about new technologies and everything that has to do with air transportation. At the beginning, everything is expanding with slow pace, with skepticism, with trying to meet all the safety standards, because either we like it or not, aviation, regardless the sector of the aviation we talk about, safety is the #1 priority. So if we're not safe, we're not sustainable as a model and as an industry. And if we're not sustainable, definitely we're not going to be safe. So all these elements, they are meeting to this sustainable model that we want to create. What we need to do next is to take these principles and apply them accordingly to our industry or to our sector, in our case, advanced air mobility. Now, when we talk about advanced air mobility, we all know that we talk about electric flights, we talk about new technologies, advancements that either we like it or not, or either we aim for that. We always put in new technologies the word sustainability next to them. And inevitably and unfortunately, we end up confusing what we actually do with what we want to do. And this up ending to be what we call the greenwashing illusion, which is something really, really bad. And I'm sure that you all have heard the last couple of years with airlines doing actions, that they weren't representing the actual result regarding sustainability or environmental sustainability. So do we actually know what makes advanced air mobility a sustainable sector? And this is a question that I pose to all the wonderful presenters and audience that we have here today. Do we know how we can make advanced air mobility a sustainable sector? Do we know how we're going to avoid this greenwashing culture that exists out there? Because we all want to say that whatever we produce, it's friendly to the environment, it's friendly to the people, and it's developed for a viable industry, but also for supporting the society. So we need to be very careful. And in order to do that, we need to start building a culture in a way that it will start from the leadership and then reach out to all the ladder of employees in any industry, in any company, in any organization. And this is what we call systemic thinking. And this, of course, has to do by understanding what our operations are, how our system works. Now, when we talk about advanced air mobility, the first things for somebody who's not familiar with the topic or with the sector, the first thing we need to consider is, of course, what are we going to have as benefits, environmental benefits at the beginning? And of course, we're going to have reduced emissions because we won't have the combustion from the operation of the vehicles. We're going to have reduced road congestions, or we're going to have smaller infrastructure in terms of footprint, environmental footprint, or other effects that they are currently affecting local societies or local environments. And at the same time, we're going to see expansion of specialties, expansion of research. And all of you, companies that they have started developing these eVTOLs, that they started developing drones, that they're expanding, that they're working with the regulators and manufacturers for that purpose. So we see things are expanding. And inevitably, by creating new job specialties, by trying to reduce emissions from flight operations, these are all elements that they are contributing to sustainability. Now, in order to be sustainable, though, and in order to operate as a sustainable industry or as a sustainable sector, and this is an approach that I use with my students as well in our master's degree, is that in order to become sustainable, you need to be in a position to understand what are the challenges. What are the challenges that we have when we work with airlines or with manufacturers, aircraft manufacturers, or with anybody who is working in the aviation sector, including advanced air mobility, of course. And in our case, for advanced air mobility, which is a similar issue that we have in all the aviation sector companies, is, first of all, big concern, manufacturing. We consume a lot, we emit a lot, we have increased use of materials, degradation of natural resources for extracting these materials. Then we have the development of batteries for using in eVTOLs or UAS systems. which are, of course, resource heavy to build. They do degrade quickly. And then we end up with a big amount of waste. And the big question here is, what do we do with that waste? Do we stop thinking, or do we stop being sustainable only to the point that we operate? And then what is happening during that operation? For example, urban noise, it's an issue. Or what is going to happen with possible visual clutter? These are also concerns that we need to think about. So when we talk about sustainable development, or we talk about a sustainable model for advanced air mobility in that case, what do we need to do? We need to think holistically under the approach of life cycle assessment and life cycle analysis. We need to consider differently. So far, we are thinking from production to operation. No, this is a different mentality and a different culture that we need to embed to all aviation professionals. We need to go from production to disposal culture. What do? Are we still staying in the cradle to grave approach, meaning we use it, we develop it, we use it, and then we put it in the landfill as waste? Or we are changing to a circular economy model, to cradle approaches, from how do we make it, how do we use it, how we maintain it, and then what do we do with the waste of it? Do we use any industrial symbiosis approach? The waste that I produce as sector, it can be useful for any other sector. Do we have these approaches in our culture as air transportation sector? And then how do we explain our energy resource use and dependency? Energy consumption and energy use requires to be called sustainable only if the energy production is sustainable. Is there any consideration for that? And then, of course, we need to assess the entire systemic impact, not only for the environment, but also how all these things cost for the society and for the company itself. And of course, assess the benefits, because inevitably, all these things that all of us are aiming to do, they do have benefits for the society, for the environment, and definitely they're bringing economic viability for companies to grow and continue to exist. Now, as I said earlier, everything is summarized very briefly, because these things I've just said, they're summarizing a whole curriculum, academic curriculum at the moment. But what we need to have in mind is what we call life cycle thinking, life cycle analysis, from the natural resources to the extraction of raw materials, design and production, packaging and distribution, use and maintenance, and then disposal. And that's the problem that the whole aviation sector faces right now. We know how many aircraft has been put in airport graveyards. We know what is happening with the difficulty of decommissioning aircraft. Of course, we don't have a regulation yet. We do have IATA that's sending us some guidelines about decommissioning for all the different parts of aircraft. Now, when we talk about new technologies for advanced air mobility, we need to change, or we need to develop our mindset toward that direction from early on. We need to find ways to close the circle, go back to the recovery, go back to the reuse, or see how we're going to recycle materials or components, how we're going to build this circular economy model. Either everybody who is working in the aviation sector, we all have this feeling that we work on something big, and we do. But if we want to become a sustainable industry, we need to shift our mindset. And shifting the mindset means that we need to learn, we need to train, we need to see things differently and learn from other industries, because either we like it or not, aviation, because of this prestigious status and because of the safety being the holy grail of its operations, we have stepped back a little bit and let other industries take the leap on sustainability. And now we are following, and we're following rapidly. And that's great, because we're doing so many things and aviation changes. But we need to change the way we think from the beginning to the end. Cradle to cradle approach, enhance circular economy, see what we do in terms of natural resources, design, production, use, and then recovery. This is something that we need to consider seriously when we talk about new technologies, innovative technologies, and building a new future for the air transportation. Now, life cycle analysis and life cycle assessment is one of the most important tools, technical, basically softwares that we use And it's not just one, there are many of those models that they're existing, but life cycle analysis, it's pretty much that. It is a model that aims to meet all the sustainability principles, but taking one by one these circles, these elements of sustainability, and assess them, assess their life cycle cost, assess the economic implications of a product's life cycle, assess the environmental perspective or its effect to the environment, assess this whole effect, the products or services effect to the society, and the risks and any of the risks associated with all these processes. And with that in mind, and with that systemic thinking, we end up having again the circles meeting and interconnecting and having what we call life cycle sustainability assessment. And life cycle sustainability assessment is what everybody needs to be using in the aviation industry. It's not something that one person can work on a company. It's something that requires group work. It requires a mindset from different experiences and expertise. And then its applicability varies across even companies that they're doing the same thing, because sustainability and models of sustainability, they're varying even between companies that they're doing the same, that they're offering the same services or products. Of course, as I said, it's a very big topic. And the deeper we go in the aviation operations and in the applicability of sustainable principles, we see that it's not easy unless we have the mindset there. The most difficult thing that I have seen all these years that I've been working with the aerospace industry and airlines and maintenance, repair, and overhaul organizations was that shifting the mindset from the most simple things to the most complicated things, from even recycle the waste of toxic material containers to building a sustainability strategy. Everything has to do with the mindset and the culture. And personally, being an academic, this is what I'm trying to do. Educate tomorrow's aviation professionals for having, for you, for all of you, regulators, industries, companies, the appropriate personnel that understands what sustainability is. That's all I can say. I could continue talking and talking, but when we talk about sustainability, we need to have these things in mind. We shouldn't just focus on the environment. We shouldn't just focus on the economic viability. We should have this holistic approach of environment, society, and economy, and move forward supporting all these three sustainability principles. Thank you very much. You can find me on LinkedIn with my name, or you can use my email and talk to me for whatever issue you want to talk about sustainability in aviation. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Eva. It was really fascinating listening to you, and I'm sure everybody enjoyed your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next guest is Eyal Zehavi, and he'll be giving us feedback on what's happening on the other side of the Atlantic, and across the Mediterranean, Israel. Thank you, Eyal. The floor is yours.
Yes, hello everybody. Very glad and excited to be here. My name is Eyal. I'm Air Taxi Israel CEO and founder, private pilot,